What does it mean to reclaim a nation's soul amid chaos? When territories fall, when war rages, and when the world stands at the edge of imperial influence, who rises to restore the flame of independence? In the heart of Burkina Faso, a nation gripped by insurgency and political turmoil, one leader stands firm in his vision for a stronger, independent future. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's recent address to the active forces of the Central Plateau region was more than just a call to arms. It was a declaration of intent. Burkina Faso is a reference, he proclaimed, not just in terms of survival, but as an emerging symbol of sovereignty in a region too often dominated by external forces. His words were not only a rallying cry, but a reflection of the nation's enduring spirit, despite the overwhelming challenges it faces. This speech, which resonated deeply across Burkina Faso, was more than a military briefing. It spoke to the heart of the country's identity, its drive for territorial reclamation, its resolve to resist external domination, and its vision for economic transformation. Traoré's message was clear. This is a war not just against insurgents, but against the forces that seek to keep the country in perpetual submission. The stakes are higher than ever, and the path forward is fraught with tension. But in the face of adversity, Burkina Faso has chosen to rise. So, what did Traoré say, and what impact this might have? Let's find out. How does a nation, divided and scarred by insurgency, reclaim its soul from the grips of chaos? What does it take to reassert control over land that has been abandoned for years? Captain Ibrahim Traoré's speech to the active forces of Burkina Faso's Central Plateau region was not only a call for military unity, it was a stern message to insurgents and external powers alike. The land is ours to protect, and we will not surrender it. The ongoing operations to retake territories from armed groups are not merely tactical exercises. They are deeply symbolic acts of resistance and reclamation. These territories, once abandoned, are now the focal point of Burkina Faso's struggle to reassert its sovereignty and chart its path free from outside manipulation. In a nation where insurgency has torn at the fabric of daily life, securing these regions is more than a military necessity. It is an affirmation of the state's legitimacy and resilience. For many years, various regions of Burkina Faso have been under the control of insurgent groups, both local and foreign, often causing a breakdown in social, economic, and governmental structures. In his address, Traoré didn't just acknowledge the devastation caused by these groups. He framed the recapture of these territories as an urgent, non-negotiable task. He said, "We will not allow this land to remain in the hands of those who seek to tear us apart." This sentiment ran deep throughout his words. As the military spearheads operations aimed at consolidating control, it becomes evident that this fight isn't just a battle for land. It's a war for the very identity of the nation itself. The strategy to reclaim and hold these territories involves a combination of military might and strategic patience. Unlike the initial military responses, which focused on quick strikes and tactical withdrawals, Traoré emphasized a different approach: permanence. The goal isn't just to retake territory, but to establish a permanent presence in these areas. These are regions that, for years, have been marked by insecurity, instability, and a void in governance. The military's mission isn't just to push back the insurgents, it is to fill that void with an unshakable presence that cannot be easily dismantled. This requires not only military force, but the collaboration of local communities, resources, and a robust infrastructure for long-term engagement. Part of the reason the government has struggled to reclaim these areas lies in the complexity of the insurgent forces involved. These groups operate in an environment where local grievances, regional instability, and external support combine to create a perfect storm for the insurgency. Insurgents, often operating under the banner of ideology and rebellion, capitalize on the absence of strong governance to recruit fighters and further their aims. Their presence in the territories isn't just a temporary occupation. It's a methodical effort to destabilize the country and undermine the state. This is precisely why the task of reclaiming these territories is so crucial to Burkina Faso's future. Traoré's message to his forces was that the military operations would not just be about pushing insurgents back into the shadows. Instead, They must be about forging a permanent bond between the land and the people who live on it. The vision of Burkina Faso's military forces is clear. It is not enough to take the land must be made secure, prosperous, and unyielding to any further encroachment. This is an ambitious goal, one that requires immense resources, careful planning, and unwavering resolve. But it is also a mission that is crucial to the nation's sovereignty and survival. By reasserting control over these regions, Burkina Faso can begin to rebuild the social, economic, and political systems that insurgents have torn apart. The challenge, however, isn't just military. The real test will be how well the government can build the trust and resilience of local communities. For years, the absence of a strong governmental presence has left many communities vulnerable to insurgent influence. These communities, many of which are isolated and disenfranchised, need to see not just military victories, but tangible improvements in their lives. Rebuilding the local economy, ensuring security, providing essential services, and restoring a sense of hope will be critical to the success of any military operation. Without these efforts, the military presence will be little more than a temporary solution, easily undone by local unrest or the return of insurgent forces. In his speech, Traoré made it clear that this reclamation effort is not simply the military's burden to bear. This is a national effort, one that requires the collective will of the people. The government's role is to provide the necessary support for these military operations, but it is the people of Burkina Faso who must stand united in their resolve. National unity, as Traoré emphasized, is crucial for the success of the mission. The success of these military campaigns relies on every citizen recognizing their responsibility in the larger project of rebuilding and reclaiming their nation. The stakes are high. These territories are not just strategic for military reasons, they are integral to Burkina Faso's future prosperity. By taking back these lands, the government isn't just reasserting control, it is setting the stage for economic revival, infrastructural development, and the creation of self-sustaining, thriving communities. The return of peace and stability to these regions would enable the country to begin rebuilding its economy, leveraging its natural resources, and tapping into new opportunities for growth. In this sense, the battle for these territories is deeply connected to the broader project of national development and independence. What if the real battle isn't against the insurgents? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. What if it's a battle against the very forces that seek to keep a nation dependent and subjugated? Captain Ibrahim Traoré's speech to the military forces of Burkina Faso framed the conflict within a broader, more profound narrative than just the fight against armed groups. For him, this wasn't merely a tactical struggle for land and stability. It was a war for independence, a fight to preserve the soul of the nation from the grasp of imperial powers. In his eyes, this conflict isn't just about the survival of Burkina Faso against insurgency. It's about a battle against the broader geopolitical forces that have long sought to control African nations and keep them in a state of dependency. The war for independence that Traoré speaks of is not just about physical borders or insurgent fighters. It's a direct challenge to the external influence that has historically undermined African sovereignty. When Traoré talks about reclaiming Burkina Faso's territories, he's not just referring to recapturing land lost to insurgents. He's talking about a much larger struggle. The fight against external forces, be they political, economic, or military, that view African independence as a threat to their interests. For Traoré, Burkina Faso's rise is not just a matter of national pride. It is a direct challenge to a system of global power that has long favored exploitation over mutual respect. What makes this conflict different from any other, according to Traoré, is the nature of the forces that seek to disrupt Burkina Faso's progress. These aren't just groups looking to control the country's natural resources. These are the forces of imperialism, disguised as foreign interventions and international aid, seeking to thwart Africa's growth and independence. Traoré's perspective reframes the narrative of the conflict. It's not just about the internal threat of insurgency, but about an international system that thrives on the weakness and division of African nations. The insurgency, he argues, is a symptom of something much larger. global powers that seek to destabilize any African nation that dares to chart its course. Burkina Faso's fight is one of defiance, and in many ways, it mirrors the struggles faced by other nations in Africa throughout history, those that sought to free themselves from the grasp of colonial powers. In a way, the insurgents are merely pawns in a much larger game. Their presence in the country, Traoré believes, is part of a deliberate strategy to keep the country embroiled in conflict, ensuring it cannot rise to its full potential. The international powers that benefit from such instability, through economic control, political manipulation, or military presence, have long had a vested interest in preventing African countries from thriving independently. By stoking internal conflict, these external forces keep nations like Burkina Faso from growing and developing on their terms. For Traoré, this war is a battle to sever those external ties, to rid Burkina Faso of the shackles imposed by global powers, and to create a future where the country is no longer beholden to foreign interests. He is emphatic in his call to action. If we allow this nation to remain weak, we will remain pawns on the international stage. We must fight not just for our land, but for our freedom from outside influence. This is not just a matter of military strategy. It is a deeply ideological battle, one that cuts to the very heart of what it means to be an independent nation in a globalized world. The struggle for independence is also a moral and cultural one. In a world where the dominant narrative often seeks to undermine the achievements of African nations, Traoré's speech is a declaration of dignity. It's a refusal to accept the idea that African nations are perpetual dependents in need of guidance or aid from Western powers. For him, the independence of Burkina Faso is not just a political necessity, it's a moral imperative. It's about showing the world that Africa is not a continent of victims, but a place of agency and strength. The message is loud and clear. Burkina Faso, and by extension Africa, will no longer accept the narrative that they are incapable of self-determination. But this struggle is not without its challenges. The external forces that Traoré speaks of are not mere abstract concepts. They are present in the form of economic pressure, military interventions, and political maneuvering. They manifest in the way that powerful nations impose sanctions, block trade agreements, or deploy troops under the guise of peacekeeping. These actions, while often presented as benevolent, are rooted in a desire to maintain control over African nations, ensuring they remain dependent on external aid and influence. The question, then, is whether Burkina Faso can truly break free from these external chains, or if it will be forced into a perpetual struggle for survival. Traoré's answer is clear. Burkina Faso must resist. But the key to resistance lies not only in military victories on the ground, but in the development of a strong, self-sufficient economy and a unified political vision. Independence, for Traoré, is not a simple matter of kicking out foreign forces. It's about creating a country that no longer needs to rely on foreign powers for its survival. It's about transforming Burkina Faso into a nation that can stand on its own 2 feet, one that is capable of dictating its own economic and political future without external interference. But what if the key to true independence isn't just military victory, but economic empowerment? Can a nation stand strong without economic sovereignty? In Captain Ibrahim Traoré's vision for Burkina Faso, the country's path to true independence is intricately tied to its economic self-reliance. As the nation grapples with insurgency and political instability, Traoré is focused not only on reclaiming land, but on revitalizing the economic structures that have long been dependent on foreign powers. His focus is clear. Burkina Faso's future lies in industrialization, the transformation of raw materials locally, and a break from the cycle of external dependency. This transformation, in his eyes, is the foundation on which the country's sovereignty can be built, beyond military victories and territorial reclamation. In his speech to the active forces, Traoré laid out the cornerstone of his economic strategy: the establishment of local industries and the transformation of raw materials into finished products within Burkina Faso itself. For far too long, Burkina Faso, like many African nations, has relied on exporting raw materials, only to import expensive finished goods from the West and other global powers. This system has not only drained the country's resources, but has also left it vulnerable to market fluctuations and external economic pressures. Traoré's call for industrialization isn't just about modernizing Burkina Faso's economy. It's about regaining control over its resources and ensuring that the wealth generated by the country's natural resources stays within its borders. To achieve this, Traoré is focused on developing the country's infrastructure and industrial capacity. One of the key initiatives that Traoré has championed is the inauguration of new factories, aimed at processing raw materials locally instead of sending them abroad for refinement. These factories will help create jobs, boost local economies, and ultimately reduce Burkina Faso's reliance on imports. By processing minerals, agricultural products, and other resources locally, the country can start to generate wealth within its economy, creating a more resilient and self-sufficient economic system. This, in turn, would enable Burkina Faso to leverage its resources for its growth rather than remain at the mercy of international markets. The move toward industrialization also has strategic benefits. As Traoré has pointed out, industrialization is not merely an economic necessity, it is a geopolitical tool. Nations that rely on raw material exports are often trapped in cycles of poverty and dependency, vulnerable to the whims of global markets. However, nations that can process and add value to their resources are in a position of power. By advancing its industrial capabilities, Burkina Faso can reduce its vulnerability to external economic pressures and gain greater control over its economic destiny. This is a critical step in ensuring that the country's future is not dictated by foreign powers, but by the will of the Burkinabe people themselves. The importance of industrialization also extends to Burkina Faso's agricultural sector, which remains one of the pillars of the country's economy. Traoré's vision for economic transformation involves increasing the country's capacity to process agricultural products domestically rather than sending raw agricultural goods abroad. By investing in agricultural processing industries, Burkina Faso can add value to its crops, creating a higher return on investment for its farmers and stimulating economic growth. This shift would also create jobs in local communities, strengthen the agricultural value chain, and help Burkina Faso build a more diverse and resilient economy. However, Traoré's push for industrialization is not just about processing raw materials. It's also about creating an environment in which innovation and entrepreneurship can thrive. As part of his broader economic strategy, Traoré has emphasized the need for a thriving private sector. While the government plays a central role in fostering industrial development, the private sector must be encouraged to contribute to the growth of the economy by creating an environment that is conducive to business development, whether through policy reforms, improved infrastructure, or better access to financing. Burkina Faso can unlock the potential of its people and ensure that its economic transformation is sustainable in the long term. One of the critical aspects of this transformation is developing local capacity to compete in regional and global markets. Burkina Faso, like many African nations, faces the challenge of competing with more developed economies that already dominate the global marketplace. However, Traoré's approach is grounded in the belief that with the right investments in education, technology, and infrastructure, Burkina Faso can develop its competitive edge. By building local capacity in industries such as manufacturing, agriculture, and technology, Burkina Faso can position itself as a regional leader in key sectors, attracting foreign investment while retaining control over its economic future. This vision for industrialization and economic empowerment also requires a long-term commitment to education and workforce development. For Burkina Faso's economic transformation to succeed, the country must invest in its human capital, providing its people with the skills and knowledge necessary to thrive in a modern industrial economy. This means expanding access to education and vocational training, particularly in areas such as engineering, technology, and skilled trades. By developing a workforce that is capable of driving innovation and productivity, Burkina Faso can ensure that its industrialization efforts are supported by a well-trained and capable labor force. Furthermore, Traoré's economic vision involves expanding Burkina Faso's international trade relationships. By reducing its dependence on imports and focusing on industrialization, Burkina Faso can begin to build new trade partnerships and access global markets. As part of this strategy, Traoré has called for greater integration with neighboring African countries, positioning Burkina Faso as a key player in regional trade networks. This regional approach would not only help stimulate economic growth, but also strengthen Burkina Faso's position in global geopolitics, making the country a more attractive partner for investment and trade. In conclusion, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's push for economic transformation is not just about rebuilding Burkina Faso's economy, it is about fundamentally changing the way the country interacts with the world. Industrialization, economic diversification, and self-reliance are the pillars of his vision for a stronger, more independent Burkina Faso. By reclaiming control over its resources, fostering innovation, and building a resilient and competitive economy, Burkina Faso can break free from the cycle of dependency and begin to chart its course toward lasting prosperity. As Traoré has emphasized, the future of Burkina Faso lies not just in reclaiming territory, but in creating an economy that can stand on its own, no longer subject to the whims of foreign powers. Do you think change is possible under Traoré? Will people do what he says? Let us know in the comment section. Do you trust Traoré? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.